Because you can buy that.
Tell Kathy you can't buy that one. Axles are wrong.
Well, it may not be wrong. It just,
They
depends
just
on where they're at.
Don't line up.
Just don't line up, right?
The more you got hanging out the back, the more tail swing you got.
Don't worry about the tail swing. Just know the turn. As long as the tires don't turn, go.
Yeah, you're exactly who we want to travel with.
Yeah.
Keep turning to your middle, right?
Yeah, don't stop till you hear
Yeah.
us.
When you see the gas pump follow, you know you might have hit.
And how would they ever know it was you?
Them video cameras are live. They're live.
They doctor them up all the time.
That's right.
Do what?
Really?
Yeah. So the
Both
axle,
sides even farther back.
yeah, the axles are sitting that way on it.
That means running down the road, it's gonna run.
Run like a dog. Probably back again.
With the axles, it's sleep.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How is everybody this morning?
Good.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'd rather not use a microphone if I don't have to. I like to just speak up and not have to worry about that. So today's seminar, we're going to talk about tires, axles, and brakes. That's nothing real exciting, but very important. Very important piece of your routine maintenance schedule that you should have. And hopefully today we can educate you a little bit on some of the things that you should be looking for, some of the maintenance schedules you should be adhering to, and some of the processes that go into doing some of these operations as far as maintaining that equipment for you. So, first of all, I guess, did everybody get their units winterized before this last week? Everybody? Good. Good. So I know that was our first seminar where we talked about that. It hit us pretty quick this year. It hit us hard this last week. So we went through a deep freeze. So glad everybody got their units winterized, and going to field any questions if you had any there first. It was a deep freeze for us there. So first I want to start this morning with tires. So we're going to talk a little about tires, hopefully give you guys a little bit of an education on tires and some of the importance of maintaining and what to look for to give you some warning signs of maybe you're having some issues. So the OE tires that come on most of the trailers are usually not made in the USA. They're usually made overseas, and just to be very honest, they're usually not the best quality. They meet the standards and specifications they have to, and that's it. So, with that being said, it should always kind of be a good idea to make sure that you are following the guidelines we're going to talk about today as to what to look for very religiously, and having in the back of your mind to hopefully try to get those maybe upgraded or replaced as soon as you can. Because we're going to talk about blowout damages and what that can cause and how that can kind of get you in trouble. And it can just be to poor tire quality, nothing that you did wrong. So as far as the data, as far as what you find for your tires, does everybody know where your tire data tag is on your units? So on the front, on a trailer, say a fifth wheel or a travel trailer, your tire data tag is going to be on the front off door side, or what we call road side, or driver's side. Everybody has a different terminology for it. So on that front corner up there, you're going to see a tag, looks like this right here on the top. It's got some yellow, has a little picture of a tire on it, and that's going to give you all of your tire information for that particular unit. Your size, your PSI, recommended PSI rating, and then also a lot of times it'll give you your trailer's cargo carrying capacity on that same sticker. And I'll talk about that a little later as we kind of get into axles, because that pertains a little more to axles, but it is important to know when calculating the max load as far as making sure you have the proper load range for your tires. So that's where all the information for your tires will be up on that front corner. If you drive a motorhome, Class C, a lot of times it'll be in your door jamb or the driver's door there is where it'll be and show you. Class A, sometimes it's on the inside or where your VIN tag and stuff is on them. So, but that's an important piece to know. It'll give you your tire size, and it will also give you your recommended PSI. As far as the other tag you'll see up there on the front will be like a trailer data tag. And that trailer data tag, it'll usually be right under it, just like my example here would be the very basic one right under it. It's going to give you some information on there, like when the unit was manufactured, per axle, what the load rating is for your trailer, which is, once again, we talked about the axles coming up here. That's kind of important info to know. And most importantly, the GVWR of your trailer, which is a gross vehicle weight rating. And that's important to know as far as, once again, the load rating of your tires when you do go to replace them, to make sure you're exceeding the load rating of your tires exceed that number, which is very important. But also when it comes to making sure you're overloading your trailer, which once again we'll get the axles. That's a little more important there. So, but that's some of the data tags that you'll find on your trailer that pertain to your axles and your tires. Like I said, they'll be on the front driver's side corner on the side of the unit up at the very front is where it'll be. Most importantly, that's where you're going to find your PSI, which is what you need to kind of have memorized and you need to know, because that's the most important thing and the most routine thing you'll be doing with your tires is checking that tire PSI. Yes, sir.
If you look at your tires, they give you a PSI on that. If you replace them, you go by that rating? Or?
Yes, so good question. So if the data tag on the front is going to be what the OE tire that they put on that is, okay? So if you do replace them with a different tire, especially maybe you go with a different load rating or something like that, you will want to go by what the max PSI is on that new tire, because that's how they calculate the load rating for that tire, is by that max PSI number. So if you're still on original tires, go by your data tag on the front of your camper. If you do change your tires and go with a different tire, go with that max PSI rating on that new tire. Just make sure, if you ever do, which, you know, hopefully you'd be bringing it to a shop, and our, you know, service and parts department would do the research, know the load rating, know the tire you need for your trailer, make sure it's going to exceed that GVWR we talked about, and get the right trailer tire for you. But if for some reason you go on your own and do that, make sure you're getting a load rating that exceeds that GVWR, and then you can follow that max PSI rating on that tire, because that's how they rated that load rating for that tire, is based on that max PSI. So you would follow that at that point. So everybody understand that? Any other questions on that? Okay, so as far as load ratings, I mean, I'm not going to go too deep into that. There's charts you can get and everything, but you know, your load ratings for trailer tires generally are like C, D, E, F, G, H. Each one of those designations just determines the load carrying capacity of that tire. And when you add those up for how many tires you have, you want to make sure that that is exceeding that GVWR number that's on the tag on the front, because that's the max that trailer is going to weigh fully loaded with all your cargo, up to the capacity that you can go, which is on that tag up there too. And then that's good, you know, how much that those tires are capable of handling, and you want to make sure that your combined tire weight load rating exceeds that GVWR, which is important to keep you safe. So just remember that. Like I said, generally you'll come to a shop and we'll look that up. We'll do that research for you and make sure you get the right tires. So
what he's saying is that's what the GVWR that they say is max, not with all the camping supplies you put in there. As you know, as you keep going on through camping, you require more stuff. Just make sure you're not overpacking it and putting too much weight in there.
it can happen really quick. We see it a lot. And I'll kind of talk about some examples when we get to kind of axles and springs, some of the things we've seen. So next I want to talk about kind of some of the maintenance, what you want to look for on maintaining your tires and you know, making sure you're staying safe out there on the road. So you know, we got some of the tire issues we have here we'll talk about. This is a Goodyear Endurance tire. These are the tires I recommend when you do ever upgrade. This is the #1 rated trailer tire out there. This thing's made in the USA, Goodyear Endurance.
It's the only American-made trailer tire out there.
Yes, Most trailer tires are made overseas. But the Goodyear Endurance is made right here in the USA. So great tire is what I definitely recommend. As far as so to kind of show you some things you kind of need to know on their tire. So when you're inspecting their unit or taking a look at it, you know, kind of doing routine maintenance or whatever, one thing to look for is what's called a date code on the tire. And that tells you when that tire was made. And that's very important to know, because you can look at a tire and it can look great because you hardly ever use it. You haul it to the lake for the summer and it sees, you know, 300 miles a year, you know, or whatever it may be. So quick visual inspection, oh yeah, that tire still looks like brand new. It's got tons of tread left on it. But if that's the case and you're somebody that doesn't drive it a lot, age is what's going to get you. And age can be just as dangerous as a tire that's bald. So knowing how old your tire is very important. And you'll see a data code on it. I got another piece of paper here. It's kind of highlighted. But it's going to have 4 numbers on it. And what you're going to see is you're going to see DOT, and then you're going to see a series of like DOT numbers and stampings. But then you're going to see a little bubble with 4 numbers in it. And the first 2 numbers in there are the week that tire was made. So 1 through 52. It's going to be the week that tire was made. The last 2 numbers are going to be the year. So this particular Goodyear Endurance right here was 38 of 24. So that was made week 38 of 2024. So now you know how old your tire is. So this is not science, this is not fact, this is not written anywhere. This is just a recommendation of some time seeing it. If you're still on original equipment, imported tires, and everything's been good for you, I wouldn't go more than probably 2-3 years max. When you get into a better tire, something like this, a Goodyear tire, something like that, you can usually push that to that 3 to 5 year range. But even then, once you hit that range, that's when you need to start thinking about replacing their tires. Because what can happen to them is, like I said, if you don't use it a lot, you don't mile them out, which most people never do. We very rarely see a trailer come in here ever that's got bald tires on it from miles. You know, it just usually doesn't happen. Motorhomes and stuff, sometimes they can't because they really get out there and trek the US in them all over and everything, but usually trailer tires we don't. So it's the age that'll get you, and with the age, it's just dry rot is what it is. And a lot of times dry rot will start in between the treads. We've all seen the tires where the sidewalls have got cracks in them and starting to splinter and crack, stuff like that, on your old cars or trucks you've got sitting around and stuff. But a lot of times dry rot will start up in here between the treads, so you won't even know it. The outside may look good, especially if you're one of those clean guys that are always scrubbing them or keep the sidewalls covered or put some UV protectants on the sides of them or whatever. Your dry rot's going to start up in this area, so you may not even know what's happening. And a good example is we see this tire down here that's blown out, and you see where it's blown out. The tread on that tire looks good. So you wouldn't look at that tire and think that tire's wore out. I can't even get my finger all the way down into the tire there. The tread's great on that thing, but you can see where it blew out was right down the middle. So, there's multiple factors. I don't know what caused that one. It could have been a road hazard or something or whatever. But, on the tires like that, you can see that tire's in great shape. But, suffered a blowout. And you'll see that a lot. Generally, there's 3 things that will cause you to have a blowout or a road hazard or something. And that is improper tire pressure, age that we're talking about, and the dry rot of your tire, and it just the rubber and the belts just break down and just can't handle the load and the heat anymore, or a road hazard, which you can't do all the prep you want, but you can't avoid that if it happens, are usually the 3 issues that you'll have. And with the blowout, that's probably, it's hard to say, it can be the most or maybe the second most expensive accident that can happen to you, with especially with a trailer, next to water damage. I would say those 2 kind of go hand in hand as far as probably the most expensive things that can happen, especially if it's a lack of maintenance thing. Because a blowout can do a lot of damage down the side of a trailer. It can take out a lot, it can tear up the metal, it can tear up a lot of the under, it can rip out wires and lines and LP systems and everything as it goes. And with a trailer, you a lot of times don't know, especially if you got a tandem axle, you may not know when it went on you. until it's too late and it's shredded and it's gone and it's off and done its damage and tore you up. So
I've seen it tear up the inside of the camper too.
Yeah,
How does it do that? Well, a smaller camper, a lot of those axles are over top of the dinette. Well, some of those have the water heaters underneath the dinette on one side maybe. Well, this one, when it went through the underbelly, went through the dinette and tore up the lines in the water heater and electrical and everything inside the camper unit. So, I mean, you talk about damage.
yeah, so we write, unfortunately, it is very unfortunate, we do write a lot of estimates for blowout damage. And like I said, it can't always be avoided. You know, if it's a road hazard or something like that, it can't be avoided. But I think a lot of them can be due to, you know, paying attention to your date, paying attention to your tires, inspecting your tires, looking at them. And then, you know, the main one is the pressures and the, you know, the PSI of your tires. So it's on that data code on the front. But, you know, I personally have always inspected my trailer tires before every single trip. And I got to the point to where it was actually half and half. Before I left from my campground to head back home, I would check it. Because I used to travel to Nashville a lot and stuff like that, you know, good little trips, 2, 3, 4 hours. So I check it naturally before I left the campground too, before I head home. Because trailer tires are very important to make sure they're at the proper PSI. And, you know, people that aren't real familiar with it, you'll notice your trailer tires are a much higher PSI than what your average car or truck tires at. So, you know, you may not think that, or may just always be used to seeing 35 to 40 PSI is what your cars are always at or whatever, and thinking, oh, that's, you know, their tires, that's kind of what my trailers get. Well, most trailer tires, that's really low. They average, like this is a smaller tire and this one's 65. The average is 65 or 80. And then you get on up in your motorhomes, you actually get on up, you know, over 100 and everything from there. So, but you know, your smaller average trailer tires usually a minimum of 65. Yes.
In the heat of the summer, you go ahead and put it up to 65 or 80 or whatever, because that road.
Yeah, I mean, you always see the max cold PSI, and you know, you kind of take it for granted, but that is important because, you know, heat is, you know, if you've ever noticed, and you guys may notice it this last week, if some of you guys had some tire minders in your cars come on this last week or something, because your tire pressures dropped a lot when these temperatures dropped, you know. So same goes with the opposite of that for the heat. The heat will actually cause your tire pressures to go up. So, you know, the way that they combat and figure that is that pressure number you see over there is a cold pressure. So you don't want to check your tires after you've driven your trailer for an hour or wherever, and then that's when you check them and inflate it to that max PSI. You know, you want to do this before you drive. So if it is summer, if it is winter, you still just stick with what they call cold, and you stick with that PSI. So yes, summer or winter, you keep it the same, but you always check it at what would be considered cold, or, you know, before you've driven it. Because they do factor in, and there's, you know, when they manufacture a tire, they factor that in, you know, and you know what the tire can withstand there. So, but that's a good point, to make sure that you are always checking it before you've driven it at a cold PSI temperature, and you want to make sure it's max. So, what will get you with your tires is underinflation, because when a tire is underinflated, the sidewalls are compressed and they generate a lot of heat when they're underinflated, and then that heat degrades the rubber in a tire and causes it to blow out. So a low tire, an underinflated tire, is very dangerous, because that's when they'll get you and cause you problems. More so than overinflated. Overinflated tire a lot of times just give you a bunch of horrible wear and stuff like that, but underinflated will generate a tremendous amount of heat, and that's where you'll have your problems. So especially if the tire, once again, is older. As it ages, it cannot withstand that, you know, as much. So it's very important between the age and the tire inflation to make sure you pay attention to those and keep an eye on that, because it'll slip away from you. Your trailers a lot of times are out of sight, out of mind. You know, you have it in storage somewhere or whatever, and you just kind of forget about some of these maintenance things, and especially tires, where it's, you know, when's the last time anybody looked at the date on their tires, you know, or on their car, or, you know, whatever. So just put that in your book if you've got one, on your calendar or whatever, to check that, or, you know, hey, I got about a year and a half left where I need to change these out, regardless of how much I've used the trailer, because it can help you avoid some costly damage and keep you safe. So it's very important to make sure that you're being safe out there.
And when you have it in storage, you can put tire covers, keep the sun off of them to help prolong the life of them. Spare tire covers for the ones on the back. Do recommend putting a black garbage bag over the tire first, and then put your tire cover on. That helps keep those oils away off. It'll save the life of your tire covers that are on the back. Those oils in the tire will eat away at the back side of that tire cover, and they start to deteriorate more. So trash bag over the tire first, and then the tire cover will help keep your tire cover a lot longer too. Yep. So let's go back to that dry rot thing real quick, and it's just a lot of people don't know this. So keeping them covered is a great way to that. UV is one of the worst things for it. It will dry the rubber out because there's natural oils that are in the rubber to help it last and not dry out. And that UV will dry that oil out in quicker. So if you can keep them covered when they're sitting, especially on the side that you don't see sun, you can do that, and that'll help you a lot. Another thing is if these tires are driven less than say 4,000 to 5,000 miles a year, that's actually worse for them than if they're driven more, because those oils that are in these tires don't get distributed by being driven, and that actually causes the tire to dry out faster. So a tire that is driven regularly will not dry rot as fast as a tire that sits and doesn't get driven regularly. So there's an accelerated process of dry rot if it doesn't get driven. So that's something else to keep in mind as far as that time frame we're talking about. If you don't drive it a lot, that time may shrink down in how often you need to replace your tires, just a little bit. If you do drive it, say less than 4,000 to 5,000 a year, so it's even a little harder on it. And you was talking about tire pressures. I mean, they make monitoring systems. Some of the newer campers come with it. A lot of them don't, but you can buy aftermarket. We've got some that you can use an app on your phone if you don't want an extra device up on your dash. Some people don't like having anything else up on their dash because they've already got maybe a GPS and they got their phone up there too, and they don't need something else. So these here have their own separate monitor. This one here uses, if you have the in-command system that's factory installed, a panel inside. This works with that, which they have an app on their phone, so you can monitor this. And then Lippert makes one to use an app on your phone. Just screw into your valve stems. Once you get them set, it'll tell you when your tires heat up to a certain pressure or certain temperature. If they're getting too hot, well, you need to pull over and take a look at them and see what's going on. We got a guy who used to work here. It saved him. He had to replace tire on the road, but he saw that it was heating up. Guy pulled over, got it addressed before it became an issue. So I really do recommend a TPMS system like that. Yes.
Now, you just hit on something that also not only shows pressure but heat.
Yes. Yeah. It'll show the temperature. Yep. So these things can go trailer to trailer. It's kind of a one-time investment for you. If you guys sell your trailer, trade it in, get a new one, whatever it may be. It sticks with you, goes trailer to trailer. It's kind of a one-time investment.
And there will be a repeater that you got to take off of there and take to your next trailer, but that's really the only installs that goes to your battery, just to help out with that link between your vehicle and your trailer.
But this, like I said earlier, especially if you have a tandem axle trailer, you may not know till it's way too late that you had a tire blowout. You may not feel it, may just feel a little weird to you, and you may just think it's a road or something, but you've lost one and it's already done the damage to you. This is going to let you know that pressure's going down on you. He said they show temp too. The temp is good as long as you can see that all four tires are within a certain range of each other. You see one starting to get out of range of the others, that can let you know something's going on or maybe getting ready to happen too. You got one that's really hot, all the other three are at a different temperature. Maybe you got something getting ready to happen there. So they can really help you. They can really save you. I'd highly recommend it be maybe part of your maintenance plan or schedule or whatever to have a TPMS system. We all gotten used to them in our cars. When it first came out, it was kind of a luxury. Now it's just kind of become a norm in cars, and And we like that. No longer do you have to drive to the gas station and have that thing in your glove box and check the tires all the time. Now you just hit a button on your steering wheel, see how much tire and how much pressure you got. So trailers would be nice to have that too, and these can give you that for you. So,
Do you have a question?
Hold on just a second, Don, hold on a second.
yes, ma'am.
I was going to ask about the temperature, if there's a standard temperature.
See, there isn't, because it's going to vary outside. So, your tires are going to slowly heat up as you drive. This time of year, you're not going to see a huge increase in them because the road temps aren't going to be real hot. So you're not going to see a large increase in tire temps that are dry. In the middle of summer, when the road can be, 140, 150 degrees, and those tires are driving on that, you're going to see a larger increase probably from when you started to, while you're traveling. What you're going to look for is something out of whack.
Yeah.
So you've got 3 tires that are 120, and you got one that's at 170.
Gotcha.
Or something like that. And then you're going to know, hey, I need to get off the road here and take a look at this and see what's going on. And, you've got your pressure right there and you've got your temp. So you're going to be able to keep a real good eye on everything that's happening with those tires and know if you need to get off the road and take a look at something.
Would that help with bearings? Would that help?
No, it's not. By the time that heat probably got through the rim and into the tire and into that and everything, it's probably too late for that there. It could, but I'd say it's going to be a very late catch, at that point probably for you there. So, last thing with tires that I want to talk about, see if Craig has anything else, is making sure you've got the proper tools with you. Very easy to just kind of take for granted, do all the prep, do all the maintenance, check everything, feel really good about where you're at with your tires and everything, but do have a problem. And here you are on the side of 65, with semis going by and everything, and realizing I got to change the tire. And then realizing and going to your trailer and you pull this thing out right here, realize, wait a minute, that's not a lug wrench. That's what I use to manually do my jack if I need to, or my slide room that they give you with their camper. So realize that you don't get a lug wrench with your camper. You don't get a jack. So if you don't have that stuff, you're in trouble. Now maybe you got some fancy insurance and all that, and you can call them up and they can come get you or whatever and take care of you, which is great. But there can be a flaw there too that I forgot to touch on earlier, and that's your spare tire. You did great diligence taking care of your 4 main ones, but you forgot about that spare because it's up underneath it or something, or on the back with a cover on it, and it has dry rotted or whatever, or the pressure in it's at about 25 psi now because you forgot to check it or something like that. So backtrack in a minute, make sure you're checking your spare tire and keep that in your rotation when you're checking your 4 other tires, and make sure that it looks good, your age is good on it, and it's at the proper PSI. So just check 5 instead of 4 before you hit the road. You have a question?
Just a comment, if you have a motorhome, you're probably going to need AAA or good sand because that inside
And a
rear tire, and I'm about
Yep.
5 feet tall, and I don't like to deal with things that are bigger than I am.
Yes.
Yeah, most
Yeah.
motorhomes, you're going to be calling somebody. You're not going to
Yeah,
have
I
the
have
equipment
had a
to.
flat, luckily I found it
take
when I was doing a pre-trip inspection. And it was the inside rear tire, and it was the valve that comes out,
Yep.
that snake looking thing, but there's no way.
No, and that's not something you would have been able to fix on the side of the road anyway. So yeah, it's a good idea to have that if you have a motorhome. But some of the things you want to have, something like this right here. This is a really nice lug wrench, universal. Gives you the like the old Star type we're used to, but you got 2 good handles here where you can get on it and get a good turn on it. Gives you the sockets of the different sizes of lugs for you, a little extension there. Something like this is a great thing to have in there because your trailer doesn't come with one. It does not come with a lug wrench, and it may be a different size lug than what's in your car.
And I've got one.
So make sure you've got that. And then I love the trailer aid because once again, like I said, it doesn't come with a jack. And let's be honest, if you think the jack in your car may do it, it may. You got you a smaller single axle trailer or maybe a smaller tandem axle trailer, but that jack in your car is probably designed for 5, 6, 7, 8,000 pounds. It's not going to be designed for 16, 17, 18,000. It's not. They recommend you jack these things up by the frame or by right at your spring perch. You got to be real careful if you do it on your axle. because you have to get as close to the hub as possible, right, kind of right under your perch or even on the inside of that, and not on the axle, because you can damage the axles on trailers very easily by doing that. So, you know, the average jack isn't naturally going to go that high for you either. So this thing's called a trailer aid. I love this thing.
So you can drive your good tire on whatever side of the axle you've got the issue with. Drive your good tire up on this and get your bad one up off the ground enough that you can change it out. So you're not having to lay down there. If you do have a floor jack with you, some guys take floor jacks with you. You're not having to lay down on the side of the road and do that. You can just put this down, drive up on it, change your tire, save you a lot of time, headache, and it's a lot safer.
Yeah. So you got to have a tandem axle trailer for that. You know, it's not going to work for a motorhome, but they're handy. They work, and they'll save you from doing that. So, but have the tools. Whether you have a jack, you have a trailer aid, make sure you got a lug wrench in there with you, or in your truck, in your tow vehicle, or whatever. Because that's the last thing you want to do is be stuck on the side of the road, realize you didn't have the tools. You thought you were prepped, and you didn't. You know, the lug wrench you thought was going to work in your truck is the wrong size, or whatever it may be. So. Just prepare once, have it in there. Hopefully you never have to use it, but just in case it is in there for you. So, one of the last things, talk about kind of wheels a little bit with tires before we get into some bearings and stuff like that. You know, these are simple things just to think about. And the only reason I'm going to bring this up is because we all maybe know, but it can happen to us in the worst time. So, if we look at this tire down here, you'll see it doesn't look in very good shape. You guys can all see that. Obviously, something happened to that. And that was improper lug nut, is what that was. So that can happen if your lug nuts become loose, or if you have a lug nut that looks like this, it's got the cone in on it. That goes in and centers up on that stud and centers that wheel up on there and makes a good connection. But if you put it on backwards with the flat side going on, now you got a gap there with a stud, and it can just sit and go like this. And that's what'll happen as it keeps doing it. It'll waller out that rim till it gets to that point. Then you have a pretty catastrophic failure, naturally. So, you know, you're on the side of the interstate, cars are whizzing by you, you know, you're determined you're gonna set that new hit record that you promised your wife, I'm going to change this tire so fast and everything, and it can happen, or you didn't pay attention and put the lug nuts on backwards. So pay attention, because something like that can happen just from putting your lug nuts on backwards and then not paying attention. So, you know, if you do have that type of lug nut, make sure you put it on properly. So, any questions on tires? Anything left on tires? Yes.
What about your valve stem?
Okay.
Would you want to change that each time you change your tire?
It's highly recommended. Yes, you can check your valve stem just like you can your tires for dry rot. You know, if you take your valve stem, you kind of bend it a little bit and see if it's got some cracks in it or whatever, and that'll tell you if you know you need a new valve stem. It should be very nice and flexible, and when you bend it, not see any cracking in it or anything. But you should always change your valve stems when you change your tires. Yes. I'm sorry? If you have the steel ones, then you can just inspect them and make sure that everything's okay and the seals on them are okay. Otherwise, a lot of times they can last a little longer for you naturally. But you know, if you have rust issues, if the seals are bad or whatever, then you can change those as well. So, but yeah, when someone changes them, they'll inspect those for you and make sure and see if you need new ones or not. Yes, sir. Yes.
Do you change the valve stems here if you buy tires here?
Yep. Sure do.
Excuse me, do you balance them also?
Do
you balance the tires also?
You can.
You
Yes,
can?
Sure can.
Okay.
Yep.
Generally don't balance the trailer tires though.
That's one thing. That's one thing that's bad about the internet. There's talk back and forth about everything. You know,
Yeah.
People say you're supposed to balance, and most people say you're not.
Yeah.
But you guys normally don't recommend balancing tires.
If you look, I don't know if I've ever seen a trailer tire come in with weights on it.
No, I mean,
just
not-
don't see it.
Okay.
How about rotating? Do you do that on them? Don't worry about that neither.
They're all trailer tires are different than car tires. So trailer tires are always getting twist and turn. That's why you don't put a passenger car tire on a trailer because they're not made for that. One other thing before we move on, because we're running out of time, but a lot of the newer ones are coming with nitrogen in them instead of air. if
And this is how you know.
yeah, you got a green cap on it. Yeah. Can you put air in a nitrogen-filled tire? Yes. It's not as stable as nitrogen. Nitrogen is supposed to stay, at constant pressure. You can put that in there. Are there places? I only know of one place in Evansville, and I think that's Lexus, that does nitrogen filled.
Where is it?
Lexus
Dealership.
Lexus dealership.
Costco now has a pump outside that you can get to.
Do nitrogen?
If you're a member.
Okay. So you can just take your tire off, take it in there, because you're not going to get your camper next to their pump.
Yeah,
It's
when
right there.
you buy tires from them, they put nitrogen in them.
Okay. So there we go. Now we've got. So
But
just
that is
boosted
a question we
efficiency.
get a lot, because sometimes people think, kind of like if you drive a diesel versus gas, the green pump versus the whatever, you can't mix them naturally. No, just because you have nitrogen in your tire, if you need to air it up, it's okay. Put the regular air in them will not hurt them at all. It's perfectly fine.
If you go to B&P gas station and you put the green nozzle in your diesel, you will be pumping gas.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
Right.
different, and you got your yellow
we learned that
E85s
from
and all that. Yeah,
experience.
whole nother subject there. But yeah, pay attention. Yeah, BP does have the green pumps. Yep, they sure do.
We had
They sure
that.
do. Yep. Okay, so talk about axles and brakes just a little bit here. Kind of to tie the tire and the axle thing together. I want to talk about this tire right here. So, when it comes to axles, there's not too much, we're going to talk about bearings and that's a very important maintenance item is your bearings on your hubs here. But the axles themselves, there's really not a lot of maintenance on the average trailer axle, besides inspection to make sure that everything looks okay. But a sign that you're having a problem can be this right here. You see this tire, see, we look good everywhere but here. This means we have an axle problem, is what this is. And the thing is a lot of times this will be on the inside. So unless you're kind of really sticking your head in there and looking and paying attention, you may not see it just in a quick walk by. So it kind of goes back to what I was talking about, inspecting your tires, taking a look at all four of them, taking a look at the tread all the way across, because this is a very key indicator of an axle problem that's causing this uneven wear. And we're getting really thin right here. This is a blowout danger right here. But if you were looking at a tire from this side and look at it like that, everything looks great. You got tons of tread and everything, but she's wearing down on the inside there. So, with that, at that point, generally what's happened there is probably a road hazard. Like I said, most axles are not really any adjustments. They're solid mounted on spring perches to the axles. They're all aligned from the factory and everything like that. There's not really alignments and stuff you really doing it. More than likely, that's something that got a pretty hard curb or something like that and knocked that axle, and bent a perch or something like that slightly and got that axle out of whack. And then as you continue, you wouldn't really feel that. It kind of, especially on the tandem, you wouldn't really feel that, but it's obviously a little out of whack and wearing the inside of that tire there. So. Kind of tying them together, that's the last thing to look for on your tires, and it's usually an indicator of an axle problem. So part of that routine maintenance is, yes?
How about a bearing? The bearing goes out?
A bearing?
A bearing,
To be honest with you, I don't know. I assume that it possibly could, but more so of an actual alignment of the axle out of whack. Now, if I'd say that a bearing that would be that bad would have failed. The bearing would have failed, and you would have had a hub problem. Probably before, as long as it took to wear that down like that, if it was a bearing failure. That's generally an axle that's slightly out of alignment and pulling wrong, is what that is. So, but with axles, or with bearings, that's what we're going to talk about next year. So, part of the maintenance on your trailer, and this is one that a lot of people don't know. Just remember 12 and 12. 12 months, 12,000 miles is the recommended manufactured interval for bearing maintenance and lubing or repacking your bearings. So, this every year is when it should be done. Now, most of you probably don't put 12,000 miles on your trailer. If you do, great, good for you. Getting out there and you're using the thing. But most people don't. So it's easy to just think, hey, I'm good. You know, at 12 months, I'm good. There is some common sense that goes into it. If you do only drive your trailer 500 miles, 1,000 miles a year, you may be okay going an extra year. But after that, after maybe 2 years, that bearing grease begins to deteriorate and break down. So even though you may not be driving it, just like your tires, just because you only have 1,000 miles on their tires don't mean that you can, you know, go 10 years, 12 years without replacing their tires, because they will just deteriorate. Same goes with that grease that's in these hubs in your bearings. It does deteriorate with age. So, you know, common sense there is, yeah, if you barely use this thing, like literally you haul it just a couple times a year, you can maybe stretch it to 2 years, but I would try to stay as close to that 1 year, that 12 and 12 manufacturer recommended standard as you can. So, you know, with that being said, you know, what you've got here on your hub is first of all, some of you guys may have these fittings on there. Zerk fitting, bearing buddy is another name for it, or things like that, to where you can quick lube your bearings. All right, I'm not a fan of these. Not a fan of these. And the reason being, they can be handy, and I'll talk about how you can use them, and they'll be handy. The reason I'm not a fan of them is because you don't know how much grease you have or how much you need. So what will happen to you is when you put grease into that, it goes into the hub here and goes into where the bearings are. Then you have a seal on the back side here. We just have one that just lays in here for this demonstration, but it goes on here. You have this seal in there. That grease is very thick. And then you have that grease gun and you're pumping it. You pop that seal out of the back. Because there's, you may look at this and think, that's a big area in there. I can pump a bunch of grease in there. But it's not. You got all the bearings and everything taking up all that space right there, and you just need to get a little bit of lube in there. And you'll blow that bearing right off the back. And then when that happens and you're still pumping away, you're just pumping heavy duty bearing grease all in to your brakes now. What's that going to do to brakes?
Not gonna break.
Grease and brakes don't mix, right? So now you just lost your brakes. That's what happened. And when you get enough in there, it's irreversible, and you just have to replace all of it because it can damage the magnets. It'll, you know, once it gets deeply embedded into the shoes all the way around, you can spray all the brake cleaner you want onto them, but it's not going to get it all out, and it'll just come right back when it heats up and you start using them again. So, you know, it's a small amount, we can sometimes get it out and salvage the brakes and they're okay, but a large amount usually you can't. So that happens very easy with the bearing buddies. Another reason I'm not super fond of them is the bearing buddy doesn't get the grease deep inside this bearing. It puts it around it. Doesn't get it deep inside. If you've, you know, especially if you've been around many years and, you know, you've done this or whatever, the best way to pack the bearings by hand. And roll that thing and roll that grease into that bearing and just keep doing it, put it in a bearing press and push it in and squeeze it in there and get that bearing into every single crevice around every single part of that bearing in there. That bearing buddy thing right here just shoots a little bit on the surface is all it does.
A question. They recommend every 12 months, 12,000 miles. And
Yes.
you brought it up as far as, you know, a lot of us are old school, had
Yep.
cars with bearings in them. You never repack the bearing unless you're, you know, replacing the brakes. What's changed over the last 40 years?
Just the fact that trailers and the way that these nothing's really changed over the years with this.
Right.
You know, vehicles have upgraded dramatically.
Right.
As far as everything, not much has changed here. So a free float, free ride trailer axle is a little different than the car and the bearings used in cars. You know, these are designed to be a maintenanceable item that should be routinely maintenance.
Right.
Whereas they build the vehicles and stuff now not to be the case.
Right, yeah, I know.
Case in point, we all checked our transmission fluid all the time.
Right. And now
you can't. They don't put a
can't
dipstick on there
right.
for you. You know,
So-
you can't. They're lifetime transmissions now and stuff like that. So, you know, with these, you generate more heat. You've got a lot of weight, lot of weight with these that are going to generate a lot more heat than what your
That makes
vehicle
sense.
bearings are usually going to see. So, you know, with that being said, the grease in these are going to break down quicker.
Okay.
So, just hand pack them. We do it. We have the service here. We offer it. Hand pack them. Reassemble. Like I said, these bearing buddies. The reason they originally came out. That's an old axle right there out of a boat trailer. That's where these came from. Was to purge the water out of your bearings after pulling your boat out of the water. And those were originally designed. You pump it in, purge the water out, and replace it back with grease. So, not a good thing. It can. If you got them, you can use them if you want, a squirt or two, just to keep up with it or something like that. But I would still try to stay on the interval of actually getting them repacked in a regular basis, because it's just not the same as doing a good repack with them. So, a couple of things I want to talk about with axles and what to look for. Leon? Yeah.
If you got, if you want to put a little grease on your bearing, you want to do it, so you rotate the tire.
You can, yeah, and that'll help, yeah. And then, if you jack it up and do that, that'll help distribute it around the outside of that bearing and around that spindle there and everything. Yeah. Yep, absolutely, you want to do that. And that's a good way too. If you do want to there's no real way because you can't see your bearings, you can't see inside the hub without pulling it off. But you can jack that tire up if you're wanting to do a little bit of maintenance or whatever with it. You can spin that tire and it should be pretty smooth. And you shouldn't really have much noise at all, besides maybe a little bit of noise at the brakes, just kind of slightly. But if you get a sandy, grindy noise or something when you do it, I can tell you you got some dry bearings too. That's one kind of indicator, one check you can kind of do without having to actually pull the hub and everything, as if you do get it out.
Do you guys recommend any kind of special grease other than just a good wheel bearing grease, or
good wheel bearing grease? We use a good quality. It's a heavy duty Lucas
high temp
bearing grease.
Okay.
Yeah. Because like I said, the weight of these trailers generate a lot of heat. Some of these things are heavy.
So we have a hard time getting it too. So it's
really
they make green and red.
Yep, green and red.
Both. Usually we get whatever we can get our hands on.
Right.
Yeah. But Lucas is what we usually go.
Okay. Thank you.
So just a few of the things I want to touch on, talk about with your axles to make sure to help you avoid any accidents or any issues with damaging your axles themselves. So a couple of the things you got to make sure you're doing with your travel trailers. And your fifth wheels, but more so with the travel trailers because that's a hitch setup thing, is making sure your trailer's level. If you have a tandem axle trailer, your trailer's got to be towing level, because if it's not, and it's like this, or if it's like this, the weight of that trailer is built around the specifications of the load capacity of the axles. And you tandem axle trailer, you got two of them. Those two have to meet that GVWR that's up on the front. Well, if your trailer is towing uneven, you're now distributing a lot more weight on one or the other that can exceed that particular single axle's weight rating or spring rating. So making sure you're towing level is very important to help prevent any damage to your axles, and it can also affect the bearings and different things. And your springs, which I'll talk about, and that's more so side to side, but making sure you're level and not overloading. So I'm not going to go down a big rabbit hole here with the overloading, but you got a number on the front of your camper. You got two, actually. You got that GVWR, which is a total of everything, but you also have one that just says cargo carrying capacity. That's usually on the tire sticker. It'll be like, my little example sheet here was 1,393 pounds. All right. Now that's everything, guys. That's everything. That's your LP tank. That's your battery. That's anything that's in any of your tanks underneath. And that's everything that you guys have packed into that.
Four grills and griddles that you got in the front.
It adds up so fast, guys. Trust me, you have no idea how fast it adds up with what we store in these things, especially as the years go by. It's amazing. So it's very easy to exceed that. When that gets exceeded, you're straining everything. You're straining the tires, you're straining the springs, you're straining the bearings, you're straining the axles, and that is unsafe going down the road. And it can actually get you in legal trouble if you were to have an accident and they were to check that. It can go against you too and get you in a little bit of hot water there. So it's very important to kind of know, and you can have that checked if you're worried about it, some of you guys may know that some of those ratings can be 3,000-4,000 pounds, and you're like, there's no way I got that. You're fine. But some of them can be lower. I've seen some of them well under 1,000 pounds before on certain trailers, where they built them just and the way it was optioned out and everything. So you want to know that number and kind of keep an eye on what you got in there to make sure you're staying safe. Yes.
I'm just gonna ask, where do you?
You can go to, like, the best place is to be hooked up and go to your truck stop, the CAT scales. You've seen those. It's what all the semis use because they have to for law, for reasons, to make sure they're not overloaded and being safe traveling down the road. So, by law, they have to do that and know it. But you're like right up here at the Flying J and Pilots, they've got those scales. I thought it's like $10 or something like that, and you can go through and you can weigh, you can check your truck and your truck axles to make sure you're not overloaded. You're not towing too much that your truck can handle. You can check each one of your truck axles, make sure it's evenly distributed by your hit setup, and then check your trailer weight and make sure you don't have it overloaded.
I think some of the farm co-ops have them too, where you can go by there and check it as well.
So,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
On your toy haulers, any information, how much you put for stuff in there?
Yeah, well, and your sticker up there will tell you, and you'll see your toy haulers will always be a lot more. Your toy haulers may be 4,000 or 5,000 pounds because they're designed to have, that UTV or whatever in the back of it.
Well, I was just thinking about all this stuff, because I'm now getting.
Yeah.
I get an idea.
Yeah, but I mean, they're built that way purposely. They have higher load rated tires on them. They have heavier axles on them because they're built for that purpose. And that sticker will tell you that same number and tell you what you're able to haul.
Plus the back of all the water.
Yep.
My wife doesn't like the water. So I get bigger on the water.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it can all add up on you quick. So it's just a good thing to keep in mind. If you're doing a visual inspection on their axles, one thing we've had people call in and ask us before is they'll say, my axle looks like it's bent. That's by design, and that's the way that those are manufactured. Your axles should always have a natural curvature to them that goes kind of upward. If it's sagging going down, you got a problem. If your axle actually is straight, generally you're having an issue and something's happening or something's wrong. You should always have a natural kind of curvature to your axle. Some people look at it and think, oh, something's happened, my axle's bent. It's actually the way they're built and designed and the way that they should look. Now, different axles are a little different. If you have, there's some torsion axles and different ones like that actually will be straight. But your traditional axle should kind of have it. This is a question we get and I kind of wanted to address. A second thing is I've had people see their trailer that we've pulled it up front, parked it for them, or they've pulled in the campground or parked and they got out and looked at it and they say, my axles look twisted. Well, that's a natural thing that can happen too with your axles. If you're backing and turning them kind of sharp and they're going in, they're getting twisted when they're going. And if you stop after you just made a sharp cut, they instead of the tires being perfectly straight, they may be a little off canter or a little twisted because that axle got twisted as it went in. It's best to try to avoid that if you can. If you're just camping or something, it's not going to hurt it. But if you're putting it in long-term storage, I'd recommend just pulling forward a little bit and then backing back in again. It'll straighten it back up for you if it's going to sit for a long period of time. Not to have that stress on there, but short term, if they're designed for that, it's built for that, it's okay. That's something else people sometimes will ask about. So, let's see. Questions? I think I've covered all the material that I would like to cover. One last thing. Sorry, I have one more little prop up here. I forgot to grab and show you guys. So, you guys know what this is? Emergency breakaway. So the purpose of this is naturally you hook it to your tow vehicle and under trailer for any reason. Trailer will come loose from your truck. This pulls a cord here, pulls this pin out. When that happens, it applies full current to your brakes. So full strength as much as it can, full current out of your battery to your brakes, and hopefully stops that trailer from continuing at 60 mile an hour down the road, taking everything out in its path. So this is designed to stop it. So a couple of things with this I just wanted to touch on. It really doesn't have anything to do with axles, but it does with brakes. Is if for any reason, because it does happen, sometimes you accidentally pull that out. It can happen, it can caught it on something, whatever.
A lot of people doing yard work. They're mowing around the trailer.
Yeah.
Because it hangs down, they don't put it up around the tongue or whatever, that it catches it with a weed eater or a mower, and then sometimes they don't realize it too.
Yep. You know, if that happens, just put it back in. You want to get it put back in as quickly as you can. Now, not like, oh my God, and freak out and run and grab it or whatever. But when that does get pulled out, it's providing full direct current from your battery through your brakes. That's a lot of current. And a smaller gauge wire, your wire will heat up and it will begin to melt, and a lot of times they'll eventually melt in half. This is what will happen if it just sits and you have a fully charged battery. You know, you got a good full charged battery and this gets pulled out and sits, it'll burn your wire up because it's just direct current. So, you know, just put that pin back in. That's all you have to do. Just get it put back in and everything will be fine. Another thing that we see a lot, try not to twist this up with your chain. A lot of people do that, and they'll zigzag it through their chain or twist it up with their chain or whatever and stuff. That can prevent it from actually doing what it's supposed to do. Have this kind of separate and hook it with a separate thing to a point on the vehicle. If you have this and it's dangling a lot, a little trick is you can twist it, and when you twist it, it'll kind of start doing this, and then it won't hang down and drag the road or whatever. It'll be there for you. You just keep twisting it, but it'll still pull its spine actually. So don't wrap this up in your chain. It can hinder the ability to do what it's supposed to do if you do that. So, okay, I think I've covered everything. What questions you guys got? All right, we got a couple. You got first.
What is your cost on
a repack for like a tandem axle repack is going to run $449, and that is a full teardown repack. Will fully inspect and adjust your brakes for you at that time and everything, and reassemble and do a tire inspection for you and everything. Yes.
Like when you take and pack your bearings and you put it back together, what kind of air gap do you need between your brakes and your drum?
Very, very minimal. I do not have an exact number for you, but it
Just
is
want to
very
hear a little
minimal.
bit of a drag.
Yep. I mean, you know, I'm not gonna put this back together right now. I mean, yeah, when you spin it, it should just almost just barely just graze it. Shouldn't feel any friction. It should spin fine, but it shouldn't just free spin for, you know, a period.
Right.
Just, I mean, literally just barely touch it. Just
Okay.
barely graze it. So minimal. I don't know exact number, but but minimal. Yes.
Going back to the emergency brake, I don't think that I heard it.
Yes.
So mine, I'm always afraid that it is too low.
Yes,
Is
yes.
that correct?
Yep.
So did you say just?
Yeah,
spin
if
it
you
on
take that
itself?
thing and just twist it, and when you twist it, it'll kind of twist itself up and kind of
Okay.
shorten itself and twist itself up, but it still pulls apart just fine for if it needed to.
Make sure you're leaving enough room for when you make turns.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
get
mean,
tight,
like I said, it'll
going around a
still
corner.
pull itself. But now,
Find out real quick.
yeah,
So similar to what you do with the chains.
same thing. Yeah, we can kind of do with those. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
What about on fifth wheel?
What's that?
The
Breakaway?
Yeah.
On the fifth one? I mean, yeah, it should
bed
just be in the bed of your truck there, so and you hook it to your.
Just hooking on the bed.
Yeah,
Or the-
yeah, one of your anchor points there where your fifth wheel hitch is down there. Yep. Yeah. By the time you got the two little chain, you have the two little chain hooks.
Depends
Yeah.
on if you got a buck system.
Yeah.
I got the folks.
Yes, sir.
When I'm all hooked up, ready to go, leave home, and I got a little 100-foot driveway. I usually reach down in and get the
Brakes?
to
Yep.
make sure that
Yep.
the brakes are gonna work once I leave home.
Yeah, that's a fantastic practice to do. You know, it should be part of your pre-trip takeoff kind of inspection. Is the last thing is you're pulling out, pulling away. Reach down, give those trailer brakes a squeeze, and just make sure you feel that way. You know your 7-way's hooked up. You know everything's connected properly. The brake controller's working properly. Give a little squeeze, check, make sure they're there. I always did that. Always did that. All right, so we appreciate you guys coming today. We're gonna give away some stuff today. We're gonna give away this. We're gonna give away this.
Cool.
For you guys this morning. So,
It's the ones that registered online.
yep, for the guys that registered online this morning, give away a few little prizes here. A few little piece of paper. All right, I have Gary Coursey.
That's me.
All right, Gary, which one would you like?
Well, I got a single axle.
So you're gonna be right here.
So
That's gonna be the
So-
best bet for you.
so
That was a
There you are, sir.
no brainer.
You're welcome. There's a nice wrench.
yes, sir.
I'm in trouble here, guys. Sorry. All right, got one. Shannon. Shannon Seichman. Seichman?
Yeah, that's me. I
Seichman?
had single
That was a
axle too.
Seekman or Seichman?
See,
Okay, Seekman. All right, you got a single axle too? I'm sorry.
that's all right. Somebody else is
What
winner.
I don't know. I don't know. Check Seekman.
I'll tell you what. What about the tire cover?
Tire cover?
Can I trade this for the tire cover? And
Yeah.
I don't know if she'd be interested in the lever, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was easy.
Yep.
Cool.
We'll go back there and find out what size you got. Because these are different sizes. We'll find out what size you got.
All right.
Normally we don't trade prizes. and
Well,
trade
no, but
that.
hey, I thought I'd ask. I mean, even if it's
That single axle wasn't going to do each one of you guys any good. So, so guys, if you guys have any more questions or whatever, feel free to come back there to the service department. You know, talk to us one-on-one or whatever. Be more than glad to. But thank you guys for coming this morning very much. We appreciate it.
Before Christmas.